On this video, I'm joined by a super special guest, an autistic woman who also has ADHD. And she's going to tell us all about life as a late diagnosed autistic person. So let's go. Welcome, my friend. Thank you for watching. I'm Orion Kelly, that autistic guy. I'm all about helping you raise your level of understanding, acceptance, and appreciation of the autistic community. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, join me, my friends. Subscribe to my YouTube channels, Orion Kelly, that autistic guy, and Orion Kelly podcasts. I can't wait to get to this chat. So let's just do that, my friends, from an incredible YouTube channel, Neurodivergent, all about autism and ADHD. Please silently welcome Neurodivergent Jenn. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Orion. I really appreciate it.
Can I just say I apologize, and I'm saying this in a purely autistic way, because obviously I'm married with kids, but you are absolutely beautiful. In all honesty, I can't tell you your videos, and you just always look so you. So thank you. I'm blown away by
that. Yeah. But to be honest with you, I think that does kind of make it harder for people to believe me, because they think that autism has a certain look. But I appreciate it. Yeah.
This is why I love my conversations, because I don't plan them because I want them to be organic, and then bang, there you go. That's the best question ever. Right. They're thinking, Orion, ask her about that. Ask her, make her talk. So hang on a second. You're saying, and I think I heard you say, tell me if I'm wrong, I heard you say that being you, so let's go through it, in my opinion, you're an attractive white woman, means, you can't be autistic.
Right. I think it was psychologist Tania Marshall that kind of pinpointed that, women on the spectrum, they can be ultra tomboys or they can be ultra feminine, which obviously I present very feminine. I guess in a way that's almost like a routine that I have to follow, doing my makeup or how I dress or whatever. Yes, it's me, but if you look more like a tomboy, even you might have an easier time being believed. Women have a hard enough time being believed as it is, right? To begin with, but then you throw somebody who is maybe ultra feminine, if you will, then it makes it even harder because people definitely incorrectly think that autism has a look.
Do you know what's funny though? I did one of these with Tay, so Taylor, and yep. People in the comments said you look like brother and sister, and then I thought maybe there is a look. It's like, I don't, that sounds strange. Do we look alike? I don't know. Do we look alike, or are we drawn to each other's look because there's something about it that makes it familiar? I don't know. These are just open-ended questions, but you're right. There is no autistic look. It's your brain. That's a fact. Yes. But it is interesting. I did once have someone tell me in the medical profession, you have autistic eyes. You have an autistic look. I find them fascinating regardless.
I think if there was autistic eyes, per se, a lot more people would be getting diagnosed much more easily if there were telltale signs with their physical appearance.
And also, too, my eyes look like I'm a tired old man, and your eyes look like you should be in Frozen, the movie. So there's two different eyes there. So, Jenn, your channel, Neurodivergent, do you see what she did there? She got Neurodivergent and put Jenn at the end. You see what I'm saying? It's gold. It's gold. There's no one behind me. I'm talking to myself. I'm crazy. Neurodivergent. I love it. And it's your channel. Tell us about it. Why? Why does it exist? Tell us about it.
Yeah. First of all, Orion, I just want to thank you for having women on your channel and giving them a voice. I think that means a lot, because we do present differently, and and also giving an opportunity to a small YouTuber such as myself. I'm just a baby. But I think once I found out it was such a life-altering thing that I definitely wanted to share that with everybody. I mean, I felt like it was such an aha moment for me that I was like, well, surely everybody's going to want to know about this. Like, hello, I just figured this out. You know, it was a big puzzle piece that I just figured out that I just my whole life I couldn't understand what was quote unquote wrong with me. And so, you know, you automatically, for me personally, started telling a lot of people about it, just thinking that they would just be as shocked and awed as me, like, oh, that explains everything. But I quickly found that people would tell me, like, no, you can't be autistic. Maybe you're a little bit quirky, all the stereotypical things, but I don't think you actually have autism. You have your own businesses and this and that. But interestingly enough, I was originally diagnosed with ADHD many years ago, but I never really researched it or gave a whole lot of thought to it, right? But once autism came into the picture, it was just in here all the time, and I had to find a way to get that out. And, you know, I think I'd always kind of wanted to do YouTube videos, whether it was about this or something else. But once this came into my purview, I definitely wanted to get a lot of this out of my head, because it was just something that I was thinking about 24/7. And I think like writing down my thoughts and scripting and putting that out into the YouTube verse really kind of helped me navigate my journey. So I would say that that's why I did it. The name, it just hit me one night when I was like trying to fall asleep. You know how we all do, staying awake with our brains. And I had been trying to think about if I did start a channel, what would I call it? And that just hit me, and I was like, that's it. That's it. It's me. It's autism. It's neurodivergence. It's everything. But so yes, I have both ADHD and autism. And like I said, I was originally diagnosed with ADHD, but didn't really care to research it. And to be honest, there were a lot of things that fit me about the ADHD diagnosis and a lot of things that didn't fit me. Maybe I felt like I didn't believe that diagnosis in a sense. Maybe that's why I didn't research it. I'm not quite sure. But I knew I felt different my whole entire life, like my whole life, every stage of my life. You know, you hear a lot of people that will say I was an awkward teenager, or I didn't have a ton of friends in high school, but you know, or sometimes we all feel ostracized. We all feel left out every once in a while. But this was not that. This was like in every stage of my life with everybody, I felt very, very, very different. And I used to always just kind of like, I put that down to my quote unquote logician personality type, which is, you know, for those who aren't familiar, it's the Myers-Briggs personality type, which a lot of people think is pseudoscience. And, you know, maybe there's not like a ton of scientific basis behind it, but that's not the point. The point is that I knew I was so weird, so different, that there had to be something to describe it. And the logician personality type, only about 2% of women test as logician. So I was like, that must be it, because not a lot of women test this way. That's why I'm this way. That's why I am how I am. But, you know, like I said, since I never really researched it or looked into it, it wasn't until my son came along that I realized, so my son, when my son was diagnosed, so my story is very similar to yours. And, you know, like I told you in an email, and I don't want to get all emotional here, I'll try not to, but my son saved my life too. So when you were talking about that on your PBS interview, which was great, by the way, that was fantastic. But my son saved my life too, because he was diagnosed with autism. But I really, you know, I just thought I was a bad person my whole life. I just thought I was a crap human being. I thought that everybody else was getting it right, and I just wasn't trying hard enough. You know, like noises bothered me back then too. And I just thought I was a cranky old person, like an old cranky lady wanting to yell at like people to get off my lawn. Like, why are these noises bothering me? You know, I'm not that old, and why does everything bother me, and lights and sounds and everything else? But yeah, my husband and I, knew that our son was different. So we always knew that he was different because he had a bunch of stereotypies, like with his hands and his head, and he had repetitive vocalizations, and he would line up his toys more than he played with them, and he parallel played with other children, and he had delayed speech, all of which are telltale signs for a child to have autism, but we didn't know that. And it was his first grade teacher actually that told us, like, have you ever had him evaluated for autism? And in that moment, I was just thinking, did you just call my son stupid? Because I knew nothing about it, nothing at all. I unfortunately, and this is why I have a lot more compassion towards people who don't get it, because I was there once. I unfortunately had the stereotype in my head that it was intellectually disabled, which is such an unfortunate stereotype. But that's almost what I thought she was saying about my son. But we got him diagnosed. Actually, the school did an evaluation on him, and it was very, very in depth, because they had a lot of teachers and psychologists and people who specialize in stuff like this follow him around and observe him in various settings, like the playground, in class, outside of class, and talking to him. And they gave him the academic diagnosis, and then we got him the medical diagnosis. I don't know if this was your situation when when your son got his diagnosis, but they didn't give us any material. They didn't tell us, what this means or how it happened. They just told us that, congratulations, your son has autism, have a good day. I don't know what that was like for you, but that was our experience.
Yeah, well, I guess more broadly, because you've shared a lot of your journey there. More broadly, I'd say, it's astounding to me how similar experiences can be between like diagnosed autistic people. It's just crazy how like literally specifically similar our experiences can be. And it's funny too, because with our first son, who's autistic, people had to point out to me that everything was not normal or different. Like, that's how I was when I was a kid. I thought that was normal, and that's how he plays. And like you say, I didn't even realize it until someone pointed out this is not a normal situation here. I want to talk about some of those things. I think the big thing that you talked about too, which I can relate to, is for late diagnosed autistic people, a lot of us, it's happening because of kids. We have a kid and the kid gets a diagnosis, and you think, well, hang on, why didn't you when you were a kid? And that's because, well, think about it, the medical profession had absolutely no idea to the extent they do these days. So that's an argument you hear, and it's kind of a bit bizarre and ridiculous. It's just not the same. It's not the knowledge we have is not even close. But then you go to the next point is, well, you've got this far, you're married, you've got kids, you're sure your kid's got a diagnosis, what's the difference? And like I've said, and like you've said, really autism and my son's diagnosis saved my life. I went from being so down on myself, probably highly suicidal and depressed, feeling like I'm just an utter loser, born to suffer till the bitter end, that will never be accepted. Nothing about it is good. I should just die. To feeling like, okay, well, I might still feel these things, but they're for different reasons. And now I know I'm not actually a bad person. I'm autistic. I'm different. And yeah, it really did save my life. And from you too, when you went through the experience, with your son, how did it start to make you feel? Because for me, I was going through the diagnosis with my son, and it became all about me in a way. How did that experience feel for you?
Well, I mean, the self-realization part did not happen right away. It took somebody pointing out, my husband specifically, that it's hereditary, and I did not know that. And he told me that, yeah, actually like 30 to 80% of the time it's hereditary. And Orion, I remember where I was standing in the kitchen when that moment happened. I mean, that is chiseled into the stone recesses of my memory, that moment, because I was like, it's me. I'm the problem. It's me. Because there were a lot of things that I identified with my son, that, like you said, I was like, well, that's normal. I do that. He does that. Those are his mannerisms. Those are my mannerisms. And of course, it is very, very different from a little boy to an adult female, but there were a lot of similarities. But the minute I found out it was hereditary, it was just like, oh my gosh, maybe this will explain why I felt different my whole life. So I went to go and research. And unfortunately, the very first video that I watched on it was called like 10 signs you might have autism or something really stupid like that. And it was all the stereotypical things that we are trying to educate people out of. Things like you hand flap or you rock back and forth. Granted, that is true for, many, but it's not nuanced enough to be more inclusive. That you can't understand sarcasm. And I was like, excuse me, but I myself am sarcastic sometimes. Like, yeah, I understand sarcasm. Or, saying things like you don't have any friends. Or I'm like, I've had a few friends throughout my life, and I swear to you, I think it even talked about the stereotypical, like if you're obsessed with trains. I don't know if I'm making that part up. That's how stereotypical it was, The only thing that I connected with out of that whole stupid list was difficulty making eye contact, which I have struggled with my whole life. It makes me very uncomfortable. And so I went back and I told my husband, I was like, I don't think I am, because this video said da 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 da. And he was like, that doesn't sound like anything that I've heard. And so I researched it more, and to come around full circle, found other people who found out that they were autistic after having a child diagnosed. And a lot of those people just were so inside my head, I felt like, that they were broadcasting my life somehow on YouTube and in literature. And I was like, it's scary, how similar we are, how similar our stories are. So then I got the courage to seek out someone who, to get a diagnosis, which I had learned by that time that, females do present differently. And so I actually called places and asked them if they knew about some of the differences with females. And the place that I called said that they did. So I went in, got my official diagnosis. And when I first walked in, I told her, like I'm the expert, right? I'm walking in and paying her money to diagnose me, but I'm telling her. But I told her that, I was diagnosed with ADHD, but actually I think it's autism. I didn't know you could have both at the same time. I had no clue that you could have both at the same time. And then when I got my diagnosis back, it had autism on there and also ADHD still. And I was like, what? But then I started researching it and I was like, yeah, I think she nailed it, because there were, parts of both that it was, my whole life felt like a scattered puzzle pieces all over the place that just didn't make any sense. And then when I got that diagnosis, it was like all those puzzle pieces came together to form a recognizable picture called autism and ADHD. And everything fit so well. And I will say that, there was a little bit of imposter syndrome, I feel like, in some regard, because it's like, there are some traits of autism that I don't experience, and there's some traits of ADHD that I don't struggle with, places where I have strengths and weaknesses with both, which is good and bad in some ways. It's like the strength of one will cover up deficits of another, but some of the deficits from the other one will jump in, where I may not have had that deficit if I just had one or the other. So yeah, the more I researched it, I realized like, yep, that fits me perfectly. That's what is going on. And honestly, some of the statistics show that 30 to 80% of people diagnosed with autism also have ADHD, and nobody's talking about it. That's the thing, is that nobody is talking about it. No, there aren't a lot of resources that talk about autism and ADHD together, you know?
100%. Yeah, and that's why your channel's so great. That's why I love it. I love your channel and what you're doing. And I think, and just so people are aware, Jenn's channel on YouTube, Neurodivergent, talks about both. So obviously, as you heard, Jenn has the diagnosis of both. My son is the same, and I don't think it's unheard of. To be honest with you, with most of the autistic community to have some sort of connection with ADHD, and you're right, so exactly what you said, the imposter syndrome comes into play because we're talking about people with outdated knowledge or stereotypical knowledge that think these things aren't the same, or they're too opposite, or it makes no sense, or this or that, or you can't be both, but that's where it comes from. Imposter syndrome is very strong with people like you or I. We're part of a lost generation who literally were failed by the medical profession and therefore forced to suffer for decades.
Yeah.
And from your point of view, how do you view your life pre and post diagnosis? How do you view those two lives? And also, how is it to be, a woman in the modern day world, in modern day America, as an autistic woman? It's not like you're hiding it. You've got a channel. I mean, I'd love to know how you looked at your life before and after, and how your life is.
Well, you nailed it with talking about us being the lost generation. And I love that your goal on your channel is to make the world a better place for people like your son and people like my son, because there definitely needs to be a lot of stigma removed and a lot more education about what, autism looks like, aka doesn't look like anything. But as far as, how it goes living with the existence of both and what it feels like, what life was like before the diagnosis and what it was like after the diagnosis. Like I said before, I just really thought that I was a crappy human being who just wasn't doing things right. And now I realize that I'm not a broken neurotypical person. I'm a perfectly fine neurodivergent person. And that makes a big difference. I still have all the same struggles. I still have a lot of the same depression with, the way my mind works, and, frustration when, with my communication challenges and people not understanding me, and just knowing that I'm different. But it let me know that it's nothing that I'm doing wrong. It's nothing that I need to work harder on, that I can fix. This is who I am. And I think once you're able to just kind of lean back into that, it enables you to live a little more freely, unmask a little bit more, meet your needs more. Because I will tell you, I forced myself to do a lot of things that really brought me stress and anxiety, like you think, well, being around people stresses me out. I should just subject myself to more of it, because eventually I'll enjoy hanging out with people if I just keep doing it. And it doesn't work that way. And then you realize, like, hey, this is actually who I am, how my brain is wired, and I can say no to social gatherings more often. So it has definitely allowed me to make more accommodations for myself, and it has allowed my husband to understand me better, because boy, let me tell you, the misunderstandings and miscommunications we had before I was diagnosed, and you're not looking at me, does that mean you don't like me right now? You're not looking. And I saw that you actually said that you even struggle, with eye contact with your wife. It's not because of her, it's because of you, it's because of me, it's not you, it's me. I struggle with eye contact, or if I didn't want to finish a conversation because I needed time to process, like, well, why don't you want to finish this? Do you not like me? So it made a big difference in every area of my life. It made a difference in my relationship, in how I treat myself and how I view myself. So for those people who say, you've made it this far, what does it matter? Have no idea how much it matters, and because it matters a lot. It matters so much. to understand who you are and that you're not a crappy human being. You were just born with a brain that was wired differently, and you communicate differently, and it's not wrong and it's not bad. It's just different. So I would say, as far as like being a woman living in America with autism and ADHD, I would say that one of the biggest things is that it definitely adds to the challenge of being believed. Because like I was saying earlier, there's a lot of strengths and weaknesses of each that make me seem normal on the outside. What is normal? Setting on a washer machine, but it makes it seem like I am like I've got my stuff together, because like I am organized. So I can't be ADHD because I'm very organized. I need routine, but I can be spontaneous. I have a need for order, but I struggle in other areas of order, like, planning and prioritization and procrastination. That's a huge one for me. I am very analytical and non-emotional, despite almost getting emotional with you 2 times. I am mostly non-emotional. Another issue that my husband was like, even when my mom passed away, like I didn't really cry, and he was like, "Are you okay?" And it's just like, I'm analytical about it. I don't show emotions on my face. My face doesn't show the emotions. I, struggle to retain information, which, there's a lot of people out there, autistics, who just are able to encyclopedic knowledge about a bunch of things. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what did you say? Like I know you just said 5 seconds ago, but could you repeat yourself? Because I can't keep it in here, and I'm a rule follower, but at the same time, I'm a risk taker. So it looks like I'm normal on the outside, but I'm still very uncanny valley. Like, people can tell that there is something off about me. I'm talking with you just fine. And by the way, this is my very first unscripted video. But I'm talking fine with you. Maybe that's just because you're a fellow autistic. But people can still tell that there's something off about me in a way that just leaves me left out, ostracized in a way. But it's not enough for people to be like, oh yeah, you need a lot of grace and compassion and understanding because you're autistic and you have ADHD. I'm just like stuck in the middle.
Yeah. I mean, from my point of view, there's absolutely nothing off about you. You're just, I think you're incredible. And I think, so for starters, I've got a couple of things here I've got to go back on. For starters, you're right. This is probably the best content you've ever made. Why? Because you're vulnerable and you're real and you're providing insights that I can never provide as an autistic woman. And I promise you, because I'm so attractive, women watch me. That's the only reason why they watch me. But no, that's a joke. I'm joking. What I can promise you, the women watching this don't give a crap about me. They've gone to your channel already, because what you just did was the most moving, amazing content I've ever seen made when you're talking about your experience. That's factual. So, your videos, I think your videos are incredible because they're so funny. I love them. I'm not proud of them, but they're my stories, okay? That's a great line when you were going through some of your businesses. I'm not proud of them, but they're my stories, okay? It's like a funniest thing I've ever heard in my life. But you're right. You are, as an autistic person, taken a certain way. And hopefully this, the chats that I have and this chat I've had with you, we're still going, but provides people with an insight into other parts of you, which I think are bloody phenomenal. And I'm so happy to hear you say things like, for example, my wife would be so annoyed if I got emotional on a YouTube video. She's like, what do you never show emotion. So I can imagine, like, if this was reversed, you cried to Orion twice. You never cry. So, I can totally understand those things. And I also understand the things about death and grieving and mourning. I think it's very different. I totally agree. I think, like for me, sometimes it's delayed by days or weeks or months, and out of nowhere, I can feel it hit me. And, that kind of neurodiverse relationship, which we obviously both experience. I did 2 videos with my wife, and I thought they were
okay. But I get so many comments, even now, maybe a year, two later, basically saying, he doesn't even give her the respect to look her in the eye. He doesn't look her in the eye once. It's like, what is this? How does she deal with this guy? Like, I mean, the majority, if you go through the comments on my neurodiverse relationship videos, a lot of them are poor her and he doesn't even look at her in the whole video. And I look back and I said, they're right. I am a horrible husband. Like, it's very hard to shake that idea when you've been through a lifetime of not being diagnosed and not fitting in. And it doesn't change. These are the things that are really important. These are the videos that you're making now that a girl who'll become a woman will watch the 10 things. God, I hope that was that my video? And we'll watch the video and go, we'll see your video and go, oh crap, this is me, rather than that crappy video made by someone who probably wasn't autistic. That's the power of what you're doing. And I just can't wait until you're just crapping on me. Like, I just can't wait until you've got.
Well, I don't think that's ever going to happen, Orion.
It will.
They love your sense of humor too. I just love how you just go off on people, and really that's your sense of humor. I dig it. I love it. It is so hard to be raw and be, transparent like this. Because I've been used to being misunderstood my whole life. And so I feel like I need to script everything so that I can concisely get my thoughts out in a way that people will understand. And like you said, it's maybe it's past trauma, right? It's just difficulty never feeling understood. I feel like if there was a book written on autism, you could just have one chapter that had one page and it said misunderstood, and that would be it. That would be like the entirety of one chapter of what it feels like to be autistic. So it's hard, but maybe as I go along in my journey, I'll be able to unscript, be a little bit more vulnerable. I feel like I've already kind of put a lot out there. I know that there aren't a lot of YouTubers out there who will share their specific stories, their symptoms, and stuff like that. But I made the conscious decision to go ahead and do that in the beginning, even though, I may never get a job anywhere ever again, because I wanted people to feel less alone. And, and partially it was selfish, right? Like, I wanted to feel less alone too. And I get a lot of that in the comments, people saying like, oh my gosh, I do that same thing. And I'm like, thank you, letting me know that I'm not crazy and there are other people out there who experience things like me. So, hopefully with the years to come, I'll be able to share even more and be more vulnerable. And that's the hope, right? Is that in the future, we're able to give tools for more girls, to, women on the spectrum, young girls, to avoid that trap that you and I almost fell down of, needing this diagnosis to save our lives. Unfortunately, received much too late. I was almost 40 years old when I was finally diagnosed. And hopefully we can get this information out there so that more and more people can avoid what is probably a lot of unnecessary, what's the word I want to use here? Help me out, Orion. A lot of unnecessary.
I can't help you at all.
Pain.
Yep. Trauma, pain. Yep. Experiences. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So that's the goal. That's why we're doing this, right? Hopefully.
I mean, the bottom line is, regardless of what your brain's telling you, like, you are accepted and loved. There's a tribe here that does accept you and love you. And I totally, and by the way, and also I think you're really, really brave. And I agree with you. I look back on the content I've made and continue to make and think, oh crap, I've kind of alienated myself from the world here. Like, why would anyone hire me or give me a job or do this? Because I don't know. It's like I don't pick who I call out. I just call it out, or I don't pick what I share. I just share. And that's probably a bad thing, I guess. But then I think my life's a write-off anyway. I might as well do the best for my son. I mean, but there's braveness in that to an extent I can't match. Personally, I think because, there's bigger expectations put on a mother and a woman in society. I just think there is, and I can't imagine the load that it is to carry that. But I really encourage people to check out neurodivergent, your channel and your content, and reach out to you and say hey. And I mean, because it is brave, and it is real and raw, and it is important, and it is. I'm just so glad to have found you and to have connected with you.
Yeah, I appreciate it a ton. And you know what? How does that saying go? If not me, then who? If not now, then when? Like, yeah, sure, maybe it's uncomfortable, but somebody's got to do it. And you know what? I hope and pray that there are a lot more people out there who feel a lot less alone because of you and I, crazy or not, putting ourselves out there on YouTube.
Say goodbye, Jen. Say goodbye to everyone.
Goodbye, everyone. Oh, wait. That's my signature goodbye.
That was fun. I really enjoyed that. Please go and check out Jen's awesome YouTube channel, Neurodivergent, for all her stories and tales as life as an autistic person with ADHD. And thank you so much for your support. Do you have any ideas for collaborations or video topics in general? Well, put them in the comments below. Until my next video, thank you for watching, and we'll talk soon.